Okay.
Yeah.
We just finished the purely motor cranial. The last group of cranial nerves are the mixed ones, which are facial, then trigeminal, then facial. It was 5, 7, and then glossopharyngeal and vagus. 5, 7, 9, and 10. 5, 7, 9. Okay. How are they similar? Are they different? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We will start the introduction and we will cover the first two. We will try to find time for the vagus and glossopharyngeal and vagus. Anyhow, mixed cranial nerves, they are mixed. They have both motor and sensory. And I just in a little while describe to you a different aspects of mixed. I said the pure motor is mixed in a way, and accessory is mixed in another way. The pure motor is motor, but it's two different types of motor fibers. Some of them are somatic and some of them are visceral, although it is purely motor, but it is mixed in a way. The accessory is purely motor, but it is mixed in another way. It has got a cranial component and a spinal component. But these are truly mixed. And a mix of somatic and visceral. It's not only a mix of motor and it's not a mixture of motor and sensory, but it's also a mix of somatic and visceral, and a mix of general and special. Is this right, by the way? Do we have special sensations which are special in mixed cranial nerves? Think about the special sensation and think about
The facial nerve is
yes, the tongue special sensation for the taste. Yes, the corda tympani. Thank you very much. And then which other nerve? Yeah? The corda tympani supplies the anterior two-thirds of the tongue. Taste, huh? What supplies the posterior third? So, glossopharyngeal has special sensation. Okay, I asked you before, but I need to remind you. Are there special sensations in the blood vessels?
Yes.
Are there? So when we say special, we mean it is found in one organ only. So blood vessels, they have special sensations. What sort of sensations?
Special distress?
Huh?
Special distress.
Yes, but what sort of sensation?
Pressure.
Baroreception, chemoreception, osmoreception. So all these are special sensations, and they are supplied by these nerves, these mixed cranial. So they have a mix of first motor and sensory, then somatic and visceral, general and special. So it's a mixture. That doesn't mean all of them have all the components. Not all of them have all the components. We will see. They share. Another point about them, they share some central functional components. You remember any? Very important, you need to finish with it. The nucleus ambiguous, yes, it is shared by the accessory and the vagus. And the nucleus of the tractus solitarius shared by facial, glossopharyngeal, and vagus. Because although taste is carried with a branch of the trigeminal division, it is not part of the central connections with the trigeminal. So the trigeminal doesn't have any special sensation or any visceral sensation. Special visceral sensation. So we will see. They share some central components. They share some central. But you need to remember the nucleus of the tractus solitarius is shared by some. Also, they share a sensory nucleus of the trigeminal. Sensory, which is trigeminal is general sensation, general somatic affect. But all the other three have some little somatic sensation in them. But this is shared with the trigeminal nucleus. They don't have special nuclei for the general somatic sensation in these four nerves. So all of them share the spinal trigeminal nucleus for general somatic sensation. And all of them except the trigeminal share the both, of course, general and special visceral sensation of the nucleus solitarius. So they share central connection. I am going to repeat this because this is an issue in today's. Sorry. Of course, this is the general visceral efferent. General visceral efferent. And we discussed it before. We said this is there are parasympathetic nuclei. We started with the Edinger-Westphal of the oculomotor. It supplies what? The Edinger-Westphal of the oculomotor.
Okay, the constrictor.
The constrictor pupilli
Absolutely.
and the ciliary muscle of the lens. Okay, good. Okay, the trigeminal nerve. The trigeminal nerve. Look at this image. From a ganglion, we have three divisions. It doesn't come on the trunk and then give a branch. No. It has a large ganglion. From it, we have three major divisions, and that's it. So call them divisions, not branches. Now, what about the nuclei? First of all, it has got two roots as a nerve. It's mainly sensory, this trigeminal nerve. It's mainly sensory. But it has got a motor root for the muscles of mastication. So it has got a large sensory root and a smaller motor root. Now, the fibers of the sensory root, these are the peripheral processes of unipolar neurons in the trigeminal ganglion. And from now until we finish all these mixed cranial nerves, these are the four nerves that have ganglia in the nerve. Another nerve that has ganglia in it is the vestibular of the acoustic, or the auditory, or the vestibular. The actual ganglion is in the trunk of the nerve. But all these mixed cranial nerves have ganglia, and all of these ganglia have pseudounipolar neurons. Pseudounipolar neurons, we agreed, they have central processes, they have peripheral processes. The central processes make the root of the nerve, attaching the nerve to the central nervous system, medulla in most cases. And the peripheral nerve is actually, the peripheral process is actually the nerve itself. The nerve is made of the peripheral processes, and the roots of the nerve are made of the central processes. So the nerve is the peripheral processes of the unipolar cells of the trigeminal. It is also known as the semilunar because it looks like a moon, and or the Gassarian because it was described by Gassari. So it's Gassarian ganglion or semilunar because of the shape, and this is the trigeminal functionally speaking. Now, the fibers of the motor root are efferent to the muscles of mastication, but they have proprioceptive fibers from them, from the facial and extraocular muscles. Proprioceptive fibers are fibers that detect proprioception. In this case, they come with the motor root, not with the sensory root, although they are sensory. And this concept I discussed before. I told you, even purely motor nerves have some proprioceptive fibers in it. And we knew where the proprioceptive fibers of the oculomotor, trochlear, and abducens come from? You know where they come from? Huh? The trigeminal. I asked you this morning and you replied. They come from the trigeminal ganglion. This one we are discussing now. But how do they come to the trigeminal ganglion? Do they come with the sensory rootlets? No. They come with the motor root and they go through the ganglion. And when they come out, they come from the ganglion, they accompany the three oculomotor, trochlear, and abducens, and then they continue with the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve to the muscles of mastication. These are proprioceptive fibers. Now, also facial. Some of them come out and accompany the facial nerve, proprioceptive fibers. They accompany to the muscles of facial execution. Now, of course, the fibers of this root pass through the trigeminal ganglion without synapse. These are which fibers? The motor fibers. Okay. The nuclei, it has got a main sensory nucleus. It looks as if it's a continuation of the spinal cord gray matter. Look as if it's a continuation. This is the gray matter of the spinal cord, and this is the spinal trigeminal nucleus. This one. The trigeminal nucleus is there. Okay? If you read there, this part is called the spinal trigeminal nucleus, and the 10 here is spinal trigeminal nucleus, but two parts. The pars oralis and the pars interpolaris and caudalis. But you don't need to know all of that. All of it is the spinal trigeminal nucleus. And it serves the trigeminal nerve, all divisions. In addition, it serves, what else? The facial. The facial. All these terminals. Plus, nerves that move the eye. خلاص؟ يعني هي spinal trigeminal لكن it serves proprioception بتاع الهيد. Proprioception بتاع الهيد. This is the main sensory. It lies in the posterior part of the pons. It is contained, but it extends through the medulla, continues with the spinal trigeminal nucleus. No, sorry, I'm sorry. The first one is called the main, this one, number 9. This is the main. But this is the spinal trigeminal. I didn't know. There is a main in the pons. And then we have the spinal trigeminal starting from the pons and continuing through the medulla up to the spinal cord. It's very long. So we have this continues the spinal trigeminal nucleus. This one, 9. It receives fibers conveying impulses for tactile. Tactile, remember, we called it discriminative touch and pressure sensation. Now, one very important question. Is pressure sensation the same as proprioception? Is pressure No. If I do this, you feel that something is pressing on the muscle, something is pressing on the skin. So this is pressure sensation. So this nucleus serves pressure and discriminative touch. Which part of the spinal cord serves these modalities?
Can you repeat the question?
Pressure plus discriminative touch. 4-point discrimination, tactile sensation, the ability to discriminate, and all of that. This tactile sensation and pressure. These are served by parts of the spinal cord. Which part of the spinal cord? Which nucleus? Okay, let me remind. What does
That's what I'm getting. Are you talking about the gracile nucleus?
Yes, I am. But these are these. If we are talking about the spinal cord, we are not talking about the gracile and the cuneate, because the gracile and the cuneate are in the middle. But you are close. You are very yes. Clark's nucleus. Clark's nucleus in the spinal. And then we have the gracile and the cuneate. What about the other modalities? Which nucleus serves the other modalities? Which are crude touch, pain, temperature, these sensations. Which nucleus? I know you know it. Substantia gelatinum. Because now we will see there is similar here but with some differences. Okay, because the nucleus of Clark and the gracile and cuneate serve in addition to pressure and discriminate touch, they serve proprioception. They serve proprioception. We need to know, is proprioception part of this nucleus? No, it's not. Only the pressure and discriminate. This one is like the substantia gelatinum. It serves to touch, pain, and temperature. Now, it also receives branches, look at this, from fibers conveying light touch. The other name for light touch is? Crude. It is on the contrary. Fine is a discriminant. It's called crude because you cannot use it to discriminate things. Discriminate is touch. But light touch in the spinal cord is part of the substantia gelatinum. So, can you see the mix now? In the brains, in the spinal cord, crude touch, which is light touch, pain and temperature are served by the substantia gelatinum. But this one serves one of them, which is crude touch. This nucleus serves one of them, which is crude touch. And then it serves two functions from the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, which are pressure and discriminate touch, but not proprioception. So the mix is a little different from the spinal cord, but you need to remember to be able to memorize, because it's not for the sake of exam, but when you have these loss of sensation in the head, when you look at MRI, you look for the part that is occupied by this nucleus. So you need to know. Okay, this is it's called the main sensory nucleus, this number 9. The second one is the spinal trigeminal, the long one. Now, it extends from the main sensory, down through the whole length of the medulla and into the spinal cord as far as the second cervical segment. You see? It actually mixes with part of the spinal cord. عشان كده فيها part which is spinal. Now, it is found, this one, combined with a tract. يعني fibers serving other nerves come up or down very near to this nucleus, and they make a tract. And this tract is called the spinal trigeminal tract. So we have a spinal trigeminal nucleus and a spinal trigeminal tract. What is this tract? We just mentioned it serves more than one nerve. So the fibers joining it from the oculomotor, or joining it from the facial, or joining it from whichever other nerve, glossopharyngeal or vagus, they ascend or descend in a tract next to the nucleus, and it is called the trigeminal tract. Made of afferent fibers conveying pain, temperature, and light touch. Some branches share with the main, I already mentioned that, but it serves what? Pain, temperature, and light touch, similar to the substantia gelatinous. But this function is shared with the main sensory. some of this function is done by the main sensory in addition to the spinal trigeminal. Now this tract I already mentioned contains fibers from 5, 9, and 10. And of course 5 itself is part of the nucleus. The trigeminal nerve has these 3 sensory nuclei, but it has got a motor nucleus. And it is called the motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Which column do you expect this motor nucleus of the trigeminal? Which column? Huh? Which one? What does the motor root of the trigeminal nerve supply?
Visceral, right?
Huh?
Visceral because of mastication.
Yes, they are the muscles of mastication, which are branchiomotor, which are developmental from the branchial arches. So this orange column, in this orange column, we finished with this 14, which is the nucleus ambiguous.
Yes.
And now we are dealing with this one, which is the trigeminal. And it is close, not very close to the sensory, because it is on the outer part of the center, of the medial part of the brainstem, and this is on the surface. So not very close to the sensory component. Okay. Now it is composed of a column of neurons also in the lateral gray matter around the cerebral aqueduct, so it is very close to the cerebral aqueduct, not on the surface. Sorry, this is incephalic, but this is even nearer to the center. This one. It's an oval column medial to the main sensory nucleus, medial to it, on the inside. Okay? In the pons, and the fibers from this nucleus exit medial to the sensory one. Now, we have the sensory root, they are medial to it, closer to the pons, and join the mandibular, and they go straight and join the mandibular division, because the mandibular division leaves the lowermost part of the basalian ganglion, the semilunar ganglion, the trigeminal ganglion. It's in the lower part, the mandibular division. So the motor root is medial, and then it exits with. It passes, as we mentioned earlier, through the ganglion without synapse. The fibers without synapse, they exit with the mandibular division, together with they receive collateral from the mesencephalic proprioceptive fibers. We already mentioned. They are accompanied by mesencephalic fibers for proprioception. And these form monosynaptic reflex arcs. فعندنا collateral proprioceptive fibers to the nucleus for synaptic monosynaptic reflex arc. Sorry, I thought this is now a known piece of information. Because we started revising with user descending tracts. Maybe there is a lecture later on about it, but we have corticonuclear, I mentioned before, and we have corticobulbar. Do we have corticobulbar? Do we have an extrapyramidal system? Extrapyramidal means the fibers do not go with the corticospinal to become the pyramidal tract. They go somewhere else. They either go to the pons, corticopontine, or the reticular formation, or corticotectal, or corticorubral, corticovestibular. These are questionable, not quite proven, not all of them exist. But the reticular formation is, and the tectum and the red nucleus were actually proven. So we have corticorubral, corticoreticular, and corticotectal. And from there, we get fibers coming to the trigeminal. So these are not directly corticonuclear. They are indirectly affecting the trigeminal nucleus. Indirect. So either we have indirect, they have input from direct directly through the cortical nucleus, but indirectly through the reticular formation, the red nucleus and the tail. So there we have the sensory nuclei, and then the trigeminal thalamic fibers. This is from the mesencephalic. Now, I want you to look very carefully at this illustration. Look at this neuron. What type of neuron is it? Look at it very carefully. So this is one of the illustrations in a reputable, and by the way, it is from a paper. It is not from a website, which makes it questionable, not quite trustworthy. And it is not from a book, which not all books are precise and accurate. This is the actual paper. Somebody did the study and he used the microscope, electron microscope, and he studied the cells in the mesencephalic nucleus, and then they described these cells as being pseudopolar. They have proprioceptive fibers coming there, and then through collaterals to this nuclei. This is tectal nuclei. And from there, they accompany trigeminal thalamic fibers. They have collaterals to the motor nucleus of the trigeminal. Okay, these three types of fibers come through the sensory. Now, this one is the nucleus of the trigeminal, this one, this long one, and this is the main, and this is the mesencephalic nucleus. This is a comprehensive one showing everything, and also, if you please, look very carefully at these pseudo-unipolar neurons. But here, why I'm showing this illustration, although I discussed the same concept in the previous one, here they are illustrating two neurons. One of them with collaterals to the motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, and the other one through the tectum and then to trigeminal thalamic fibers. And this is the nerve carrying the motor root together with proprioceptive fibers from the mesencephalic, and then we have the pseudo-unipolar neurons in the trigeminal ganglion serving the other two main nuclei and the nerve. Okay. Divisions. I'm not going to go into details. You can open any textbook and see what does the mandibular division supply, what does the ophthalmic division supply, and what does the maxillary division supply. But there are trigeminal ganglion to the lateral aspect of the pons. This is a nerve. So when we say the trigeminal nerve, it is a very short part between the nucleus, between the ganglion and the pons. That is the trigeminal nerve. Beyond that, we don't have a trigeminal nerve. We have divisions of the trigeminal nerve. We don't have a long trigeminal like the fascia. No, it's very short. The nerve is the nerve trunk. Then we talk about the division. So when we talk about course and distribution, we talk about the course and distribution of the three divisions. So the nerve is a very short trunk, stump. We see it in the next slide. And then the fibers emerging from the ganglion immediately divide into three divisions: ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular. Now, they emerge through three different openings. What are these three different openings? The ophthalmic is going through the orbit to supply the skin above the orbit and the orbit itself. So it enters the orbit through the superior orbital fissure. The maxillary goes out through a rounded opening, and because it is rounded, it is called, this is the facial, this is next. The foramen rotundum. And then the mandibular through an oval opening, the foramen oval or oval. So these are the three openings respectively. Now the ophthalmic and maxillary are sensory, completely sensory, while the mandibular, all the motor root accompanies the mandibular for the muscles of mastication. Now, all three divisions supply very specific facial regions. I had a slide that I said leave it to them. I want you to go and Google, show images about the exact distribution of the three nerves. If you take the angle of the eye and go above the ear, this part is by the ophthalmic. If you take the angle of the mouth between these two, maxillary, below this is mandible. They overlap. This is the nerve, it's a stump. On the medial aspect, there is a motor root, medial. And this is the sensory root. Then this is the sensory and this is the motor. This is the ganglion. Then we have the three divisions. This is just to remind you of the relationship with the sensory ciliary ganglion and the other three nerves serving the eyeball. They are related to it structurally, but it has connections with these nerves. This again, it's a better illustration. This is the ophthalmic inside the orbit and related to the ciliary ganglion. And this is the maxillary related to another trigeminal, ganglion. We'll talk about it later with the facial. And this is the mandibular. Different areas of the face, angle of the eye and above, angle of the mouth to the angle of the eye, maxillary, and then these muscles and this part of the face, mandibular. And these muscles, because it's only motor component. Color-coded, detailed, these are the names of the branches you need to know and what they supply. I left it in the PowerPoint presentation, but I'm not going to go through them. The ophthalmic gives this, that. This is ophthalmic, and then these are for the maxillary, like what you call facial, temporal, etc. If I say them now, you are not going to memorize. You need to study them and memorize them. And these are the mandibular region of the triangle. Now, what about problems? Is this the right image for problems with the trigeminal nerve? Yes, because people confuse between problems of the facial nerve and problems of the trigeminal nerve. If we have lateral pterygoid muscle, which is supplied by the trigeminal, the jaw deviates to the right, not the mouth deviates to the side. The jaw deviates to the opposite side. Because this one is affected, it is not pulling the jaw to the center, the jaw deviates to the opposite side. So this is as a result of action of the normal muscle. Now, the trigeminal, there is another condition very important, very common. It is called the trigeminal neuralgia. Abir is telling me that we already have these 5 months time or what? Okay. There is something called trigeminal neuralgia. Trigeminal, because it is common, you need to know. And it has got 3 names. Or let us confine ourselves to 2 nerves, two names. Let us mention the 3 names. It is called trigeminal neuralgia, and it is a type of headache. Because any pain in the face or back of the head is headache. People think that pain here is headache, but pain in the face is also headache, because this is head. So it is also, it's a headache. It is called trigeminal cephalalgia, headache in Latin. And it is called tic douloureux, 3 names, cephalalgia, neuralgia, and tic douloureux. It's common, very painful. People suffer. Now, Compression and degeneration or inflammation of this nerve results in a condition called trigeminal neuralgia or tic-to-roo or trigeminal cephalalgia. Now, characterized by recurring episode of intense stabbing, excruciating pain, agonizing pain. And it radiates from the angle of the jaw along the branches of the trigeminal nerve. An angle, the patients feel pain along the distribution of the nerve, usually, mainly the maxillary and mandibular, but rarely the ophthalmic. Mainly the two. And people feel excruciating pain. Finally, when you need to operate in an area supplied by the trigeminal nerve, you need to block the nerve, and it's called nerve block. Nerve block. You insert a needle in a place where you find the nerve and put the anesthesia around the nerve in that area. So we have trigeminal block, and mainly used by dentists using medications like carbamazepine, helping relieving pain during. This is not for operations. This is for trigeminal neuralgia. Treated with carbamazepine. You inject, you block the nerve so that they do not feel the pain. So we give them this. It is used to treat the neuralgia, but it is also treats herpes zoster. Herpes zoster also is a viral infection that leads to also agonizing pain if it affects the trigeminal nerve. So we block the trigeminal nerve, and any other facial pain syndromes, also we block the trigeminal nerve. But we have three types of blocks: anterior superior alveolar block, and then we have superior alveolar block. This is how and where it is done, and then we have the inferior alveolar block for this, and it shows you exactly where they get the anesthesia. I don't think we can do the facial. I wanted to know that the facial nerve is as complicated as the trigeminal. No time. But either we continue some other time, starting from the facial nerve.
Thank you, Doctor.